Hi, welcome to Up Your Nerd Cred. Did you used to know everything that was happening in the Marvel and DC universes? Did finding out that some superheroes are from Marvel and some are from DC blow your mind? Has keeping track of everything that's happening there and then realizing that we're only talking about the comics universes, not the cinematic ones, and then realizing that these different universes with their own multiversal crises have gotten a little bit out of hand? Well, don't worry. Up Your Nerd Cred is here to talk about the gods cosplaying as men, the men cosplaying as gods, and how much the cinematic universes are really leaving out. At the end of each episode, you'll hopefully know a little more than you did and can up your nerd cred. I'm your casual nerd host, CiCi. Now, if you got all the way to the end of the last episode, you heard my comment about sitting down at the braiders, and I did, and I'm pretty psyched, actually. It looks way better than if I'd done it myself. Plus, it only took a few hours, and I should clarify that yes, this hairstyle being less than 5 hours is a big deal. And whenever you see your friend come through with some fresh braids, compliment them. It's a lot of work. Anyway, aside from my braids, I am usually introducing our expert nerd here. But with the shared custody, we've decided that we're going to have to break it up into the way that we have a few casual and a few expert level episodes. There's a lot of base level stuff that honestly you really need to be caught up on before you can even get to some of the expert level stuff. And you're going to see that really clearly in today's episode. But clarifying the format doesn't mean that we're skipping out on the format altogether. So, podcast listeners, what are we nerding out about this week? And as always, we are in fact nerding out about all kinds of things, okay? It does not just have to be heroes and villains. The history buffs around you have all kinds of commentary to make about McCarthyism and blacklisting, things like that. Your terminally online friend has had to explain to someone the difference between ooh and owo to someone, and I am not going to be your terminally online friend explaining that to you. Please go look it up, but that's been interesting. And Gail Simone has been my favorite follow on Threads. So what am I nerding out about? My Eternal Sailor Moon costume base got here. So now I can futz with it and make it even better. I'm really excited, actually. I am a huge Sailor Moon fangirl. I think we've talked about this before. Also, side note, I have no tailoring skills, and the boots and gloves that they gave are not even a little bit fitting correctly. But I do have other parts that I can make work. I also have a Hellfire Queen Jean Grey cosplay that I've been meaning to do something with, but I can't exactly take my kid trick-or-treating with that one without stirring up a little bit of trouble in the neighborhood. Completely separate from that, though, I have been doing a lot of media reorganizing, so get ready for references to all kinds of other literature and movies coming up. AM isn't here to stop me. So I'm going to take a quick break to get the rest of those mwahs out of my system, and then we will do our dive into the main question of the week. So the question burning me up this week is, hang on, whoa. When did Beast go crazy? Okay, now this episode is going to be a two-parter, similar to Scarlet Witch, because the casual and expert levels of knowledge about who this guy are very, very different, okay? I actually got to get everyone caught up on who it is that we are talking about before I can fully go into what is going on with who this person is and why it is that they've gone crazy. Now, cycling back a little bit. In, I want to say, December, I saw Super Pixel Boy on Threads comment that Nicholas Hoult, previously playing Beast in X-Men and playing Lex Luthor in the, then upcoming Superman movie, meant that he was playing one of the most evil comic book characters in comic book history and Lex Luthor. Now, I immediately shot AM a text asking what he was talking about because I definitely remember Nicholas's portrayal And that guy was a sweetheart. I mean, Kelsey Grammer isn't necessarily winning popularity contests, but I don't know that I would call Beast like the most evil, right? What? So, as you can guess from the fact that we are doing a double episode on the guy, his response meant that there was a lot about this X-Men that I clearly know absolutely nothing about. I'm guessing that most casual nerds aren't going to expect genocide, running a space prison, and assassinating Wolverine, among some of the other really horrifying things that he has done, from the guy who, was kind of bashful whenever Raven was in standard girl mode in like the X-Men movies, or like, the funny professor guy that we might have remembered from X-Men 97. Most of us who saw Binary and Beast at the end of the Marvels thought that Monica Rambeau was in really safe hands. And it turns out that that really only depends upon the point of the timeline that we're on for him. Yeah. So let's cycle back and start by formally introducing the man of the hour. And I would like to tell you a little bit about his backstory. And then hopefully I can get y'all ready for next week when we go into the part where he starts being polite and starts getting, well, I don't know if real is the thing, but he gets something. So let's start out by talking about who the man of the hour is. Dr. Henry Philip Hank McCoy. So he first appeared in X-Men #1 in September 1963, an original X-Men created by Marvel's dynamic duo, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. I feel like you're kind of used to this team, and there's a reason for that. A definition of why judging a book by its cover leads to people embarrassing themselves. He generally looks like a very large blue, not like quite an animal, but he's not animalistic. He's sometimes simian and sometimes feline, or combinations, depending upon whose drawing I'm at the time. But despite his appearance and his code name, when we're first introduced to him, he's incredibly intelligent and kind and graceful. Stan Lee specifically made him to be erudite to contrast with his seemingly brutish appearance. Now, Henry, we'll probably go back and forth between those two. It's honestly, their nicknames for the same person. But he started out as a child with mostly just like unusually large hands and feet, odd amount of strength, but no fur. And the fur mutation really came later, actually. It started out like as gray, and then the striking blue we know now came a little bit later. So it was during the events of the issues Amazing X-Men Adventures number 11 through 17 in 1972, right? 11 through 17, that Hank he's gotten a little bit disillusioned with X-Men life and had been actually working in a genetics research facility. Because I did mention that he got a PhD in biochemistry, right? That he's an active, like, very, very high-level genius, right? I didn't. Silly me. Well, Hank was doing some research, like one does, and if you remember in the X-Men movies where Nicholas Holt's Beast had very large feet and he decided to inject himself with something to try to see if he could cure his mutation. Well, in the comics verse, Beast, he injected himself with a hormonal extract, right? And so this popped his mutation from him having like vaguely ape-like strength and like durability to like shifting him to like the fuzzy blue guy that we're remembering. I mean, I will say that the hormonal extract, technically, he should have been able to reverse it. But much like Tobias staying in morph too long, Beast didn't take the antidote in time and stayed fuzzy. Also, yes, that was an Animorphs reference. Go read the books. They're really good. So, Hank was a free agent at this time. And so during this free agency period, he was scooped up by the Avengers. And actually, fun fact, he and Wonder Man actually became really good friends. It was very much the red Oni, blue Oni kind of Bert and Ernie. You have the wisecracking guy and the sort of say straight man. But they became really good friends. And I actually want to ask how much time that Vision and Beast spent together over the course of time, in part because, if you recall, Vision's brain patterns were actually mapped off of Wonder Man. And if you recall how, like, I thought it might be interesting to see how Scarlet Witch and Wonder Man's whole relationship was going because of the whole part where, again, Scarlet Witch and Vision was a relationship, and Vision's brain patterns are mapped off of Wonder Man. I'm just saying, Beast and Wonder Man, that might also be like slightly weird to be talking to somebody who has that while having a completely different like body and name and everything else. Honestly, it gets a little bit ship of Theseus, and we already did that at the end of WandaVision. And more than anything, I'm just sad that we don't have a Wonder Man in any of the Marvel verses. Wait, no, I'm sorry. That's starting to get a little bit out of hand. So, what I will say is that Beast does have a tendency to bounce back and forth between the Avengers and X-Men, depending upon team needs and storylines. So, the Dark Phoenix saga, for example, required him to return to the X-Men fold, but the Avengers tended to be his team up of choice. I will say that he's working on taking the team up tramp title from Cap, though, and he spends some time working with the Defenders as well. Interesting, that group, like the original Defenders, for the ones from the comics, you have Doctor Strange and Hulk amongst like the main flagship members, and Namor and things like that. So, but you have Doctor Strange, Dr. Bruce Banner, Dr. Henry McCoy. That seems like a lot of ego in one room. But yeah, so it turns out that the Netflix series with Jessica Jones missed out on having the original Defenders flagship members from the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the genius biochemist who was in the Sonyverse. I look forward to when everybody comes back together in one big universe. That'll be interesting. But the comic book version of the Defenders does have the original members of the team all leave due to a prophecy that they would destroy the world. So Beast, as a secondary member of the team, actually ends up assembling the new Defenders. Also, fun fact, the original Defenders eventually come back because they find that the prophecy was a hoax, and comic books love to retcon things. I don't know what to tell you. Beyond that, though, I will say that there is a storyline that I don't entirely get, and I'm going to need AM to explain, because the new Defenders apparently run into a situation that they have a lot of their teammates fall because Moon Dragon is being controlled by the Dragon of the Moon. These are two separate characters, so that's why I'm going to need like some controlling who's controlling what and why do we have matchy-match name situations. Having said that, Beast, as well as his other mutant teammates, so we have like Angel and Iceman, they both join X Factor with Scott Summers and Jean Grey after the New Defenders falls apart. So, as a team, they actually pose as mutant hunters while secretly helping the mutants that they're finding. Hey, do you remember the time that I mentioned that Beast hadn't actually taken the antidote to the hormonal extract and was living his most Tobias in Hawk form go read Animorph's life? So, early on in the X Factor timeline, Beast is actually kidnapped to essentially create a cure for mutation, and the testing is absolutely brutal. But to borrow a phrase from Alphabet, it de-bluifies him. He's able to like stealth as a human, but somehow his powers didn't go anywhere. So that's actually like really cool. But then they had a battle with Apocalypse, and that's really cool. But so one of the horsemen of Apocalypse, Pestilence, their touch usually causes like incurable and very unpleasant, viral and infections and such. And so what happens with Beast actually is there is I'm gonna double reference here, Flowers for Algernon Sophie's Choice that he's given. He values his strength, he values his intelligence, but every time he uses his super strength, he loses some of his intelligence. This is a huge struggle for Beast because, what he's known for is being brilliant despite, his appearance. This is the beast that we all know and love. And in this time frame, in like the 90s, he's still willing to sacrifice himself for like the greater good. And eventually, like, he has to use his strength to the point where he has the mental capacity of like a small child. Like, the man is a PhD in biochemistry who has to be told to hold hands when crossing the street. Okay. So, now there is a mutant that they are coming across at some point in the future, and I'm not entirely sure what this mutant's like, where she came from or what her deal was, but she was trying to kiss Iceman, and Hank courageously blocked the kiss, leading her to kiss him instead. And because her power is like manipulating things on like a molecular level down to the touch, it has a lot of him going back and forth between his various appearance forms.
Hey gang, editing CiCi here. Just wanted to give you a quick heads up that the mutant's name, who the Hank Iceman kiss situation was going on, was Infectia. I'm not quite sure how it is that got lost in the edit, but yes, so Infectia, it's worth noting that this is not really a well known mutant, as evidenced by the fact that if you try to look for Infectia on Henry McCoy's page on Marvel.com, you will find the name, you will not find a hyperlink. Anyway, to clarify, Infectia, a mutant with a deadly kiss, tried to kiss Iceman. Hank intervened. He got better, and that's what matters. Back to the episode.
I'm not entirely sure how it all works out, but eventually he's able to stabilize his very appearance, and he also low-key got a strength upgrade. So I'm pretty sure that this is just a how are we going to fix the fact that this guy is our genius and he is now a small child. Oh, I know. Retcon. Miracles happen all of the time. Anyway, so what I do know about Beast, though, is that if you grew up watching the 97 X-Men series, okay, that is the Beast that you have in your head, okay? He's a brilliant scientist. He quotes Shakespeare, and yeah, he likes to, scrap, but also loves being a mentor, right? And I mean, like, even then, like, Comics Beast was like really popular with the ladies, okay? He was like dating Trish Tilby for a while. He like reunited with like this love interest from his youth, Vera Cantor. Apparently his high school girlfriend, Jennifer Niles, still has like this unspoken long, love thing for him. Like, this is Hank at his best, okay? He's sitting there studying the mutant killing legacy virus. He is being the professor at the Xavier Institute. And honestly, I'm going to actually have to cycle back and stop there because the legacy virus is complicated. There's a lot happening with the legacy virus. Like, Moira Taggart and Mystique were fighting about it, last episode. And there is something involved with what Hank does with the legacy virus. I think in the future that is part of the Dark Beast world. There's a lot going on here. Time travel shenanigans. And by the way, when I said Dark Beast, that is his like an official name. There is an alternate universe version of Hank who kind of makes things worse for everyone. And I only kind of know a little bit of what's happening. I cannot wait to ask Aim about this. So we're going to take a quick break and then we will be back for our thrilling conclusion. Welcome back to our thrilling conclusion. And so to answer the question though, when did Beast go crazy? Honestly, based on the timeline that I can find, it looks like sometime around the mid-2010s. So we are going to have a lot to ask AM about because somehow, like, the nice, sweet, wisecracking scientist who quotes Shakespeare turns into someone who commits genocide and kidnaps people and things of that nature. And I'm not even sure that I'm actually covering all of the things that he's done. And honestly, I don't know how to explain how any of that comes to pass. So look forward to the expert level beast going crazy version next week. In the interim, on our calendar for this week, what's going on? Well, Batman Day is happening on September 20th. Fun fact, Batman Day was actually established after Superman Day in 2013. I think Bruce might be jealous, but that's neither here nor there, is it? So, in addition to that, we have a few other things on our calendar. We have that it is the birthday, BT dubs, of Scott Summers. So that is September 22nd. Barbara Gordon's birthday is September 23rd. And National Comic Book Day is September 25th. So, yeah, Scott and Barbara both being Libras makes a lot of sense because they are really the most balanced people on their entire teams. All right, so it's going to be busy, but listeners, we have come to the end of our podcast. I know, you are clearly devastated about it. How is it over so soon? Well, I mean, it is part 1 of 2, so. But good news! Our next episode coming out very soon, next week. Also, you're more than welcome to listen to this episode again if it's not fast enough, or any of the other 14 or so episodes in our back catalog from now. Nerd Cred takes time to build, but as easily as comic book artists can lull you into thinking that your fave is unproblematic, they can pull that rug just as fast, okay? One decade, Beast is like witty and a scientist and like Mr. Mentor, and the next he is committing war crimes, plural. Now it's time to mention that we have an Instagram at Up Your Nerd Cred Pod. We are on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're working on expanding our reach. And of course, if you like the episode, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, especially if you're trying to up your nerd cred. So you can look for me across platforms. I'm at Kira C. Davis. If you're trying to find AM, he is going to be at AM Diazard. Go yell at him about continuity errors, or show him your fan art, the good fan art. Either way, if you have a burning question that you want us to discuss so that you can up your nerd cred, make sure that you like and subscribe and leave comments. And if we pick your question, obviously we will shout you out during the discussion segment. Also, please make sure to get your friends to also like and subscribe and listen to the pod, and your friends and your family and your coworkers who trust not to be weird listen to about the same podcast as you. And this is where AIM says, good night, everybody.